Okay, day 136, how to catch a spy. This is version 2. I've talked about how Hillary has given money and support and weapons like Stinger missiles and sarin gas to Muslim Brotherhood and the connection through Huma. And I've talked also about the Gulen movement and how the Awans of Washington, D.C. are doing the same thing with cyber weapons, the 4 Awan brothers and the 2 wives. So this is a follow-up to this morning. No word yet back from Franklin Foer. It turns out that all these files that made the case between Trump's server supposedly communicating with these Russian alpha banks, supposedly they're just text files. So Franklin never turned over the real files and had any real evidence here. And then the witnesses, a guy named Tea Leaves, never was produced. Now, what I'm saying is that Hillary ran this through MI6 and other liaison operations, so the CIA doesn't have to go to the House Select Committee on Intelligence or the Senate Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And it was run through Carl Bildt. Carl Bildt ran this through the Cyber Warfare Center in England, MI6. I won't say exactly where that is and what university that is right now, but this has all the markings of a false flag attack. So I won't go into who all the people are, but the weapons, the cyber weapons from Vault 7 are definitely have been leaked to Gulen's group. And it's Christmas for Gulen, and it's the Muslim Brotherhood spy groups, as well as the Gulen spy groups. So I think Trump needs to drill down on this. He needs to find out who Tea Leaves is and subpoena Franklin Foer. As I said before, even if there isn't a FISA warrant or a FISA review, I believe that this still is a hack, whether it was done legally or illegally. It's still a hack, and unfortunately, it will fall apart. I mentioned earlier feta. I'm going to just call him feta, like feta cheese, because it's easier for me. Gulen. He's in this book by William Engdahl called The Lost Hegemon. He's just an excellent writer if you really want to understand the CIA. But here's Gulen. He set up this rat line from Pakistan to Turkey for the Turkish drug trade. Here's his #1 proponent in the United States. This is Mazafari Awan. And if you want to know, people said, oh, connect this to the Boston bomber somehow. Like, I could do that. Well, yeah, I actually can. This is Graham Fuller. Graham Fuller wrote the fact that Zbigniew Brzezinski used the Mujahideen to take down the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. Why don't we do that for the other 4 stands, and we'll do it for Turkey? And that's and the Jan, which is Azerbaijan, and that's exactly what happened. All those countries along that pipeline, it enabled a pipeline, the Tbilisi pipeline, the one for Halliburton. From the Caspian Sea all the way through Turkey, but it also enabled the rat line for heroin to Europe as well. So Graham Fuller, and I won't mention Morty Abramovich because he's not involved. But it was all Graham Fuller who created Gulen, and that was the $35 billion he has in the bank. Like I said, he didn't sell falafels to get the $35 billion in the bank. How do I know that? Well, here's Amjad Awad from BCCI. He was the Gulen's man, Midnight Express from Pakistan to Turkey. Here he is here with his cohorts here. Longtime associate of Mark Rich and known associate of Hillary Clinton. Jackie Spear was on today saying, it's got to be outside hackers. It's got to be contractors that are doing all this stuff. It couldn't possibly be people that I asked for top secret clearance for that are doing this hacking. No, it's actually the Awan brothers who you did ask for a secret clearance. It's not contractors. And now they do need the Vault 7 tools because now they're outside the firewall. So the Awan brothers work for 31 different Democrats, 20 burglaries. We still haven't heard anything about the burglaries. Why doesn't Trump just mention the Awan brothers and say, how is the investigation of the Awan brothers going? Or how's the investigation of the congressional burglaries going? Or Kisilak had, the Russian ambassador had 6 meetings at the White House during the uranium deal. Or he had X number of deals during the Iran deal. That's all he has to do. And that, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. This guy right here, I'm going to just call him Mazen for right now, M-A-Z-E-N. He is the key fundraiser. He runs the website for Muslim Brotherhood in the United States. he every 2 years fundraises with Andre Carson. They usually fundraise right after, like just last weekend, they fundraised again in Chicago. Right after the election, so it kind of dies down before his next election 2 years later. But here's a Muslim Brotherhood guy, his number one funding arm, number one, through House Select Permanent Committee on Intelligence, and Andre Carson sits on the Emerging Threats Subcommittee. So if you wanted to warn the Muslim Brotherhood that there was an airstrike coming, from Terror Tuesdays or so forth, that would be a great committee to sit on. And I just think it's a conflict of interest. So I've mentioned the server before that they used, that Imran used, and the fact that Trump needs to get that server. Known connections to Hezbollah, known connections to the Russians, sitting in between. Now here's an interesting theory, and I didn't think about this before, but there could be only one Imran Awan. And since he also had Omar's credentials for running all of the PeopleSoft application for the Hill, for all the employees of the Congressional House, he could have just created virtual brothers. He could have created Abid and Jamal and Omar and paid himself, like $1 million. And I think his wife is real, and I think Natalia spent a little bit of time here as well. But anytime I see the signature of making 2.5 times what he should make, I think, man, that's an Imran Awan signature. So anyway, just an interesting theory. And finally, I'll just say the 650,000 emails need to come out, because that's going to be, the Huma's emails is going to be the tie-in to the Awans.